Hey YouTube, LeeStation4 here with part 2 of my Joan of Arc versus William the Conqueror prediction. In my last video I covered the weapons that they will be using, and in this video I will cover the X Factors. I know in my last prediction, George and Napoleon, I covered some battles, very briefly, but I won't do that this time, mainly because it's a whole different time period, and to get into the tactics of those battles is very difficult, takes a lot of research, and I didn't want to do that. I didn't really feel like taking up that time, and I wasn't really motivated to do that. So, it's my summer. I'm not in school right now, so I don't want to do research. Alright, so we're talking about X Factors here. I'm going to use the same X Factors that we used with George against Napoleon. So those will be logistics, tactics, fatigue, and the biggest one, generalship. Because these two warriors that I'm doing right now are very similar to George and Napoleon. They are all generals. Alright, and although William wasn't a general, he was more a king, he was still a leader. Alright, so it's going to be I would imagine they're going to cover the four same X Factors, or some very like it. Alright, so we're going to talk about logistics here. Logistics, I'm going to give the edge to Joan of Arc, mainly because she has about 400 years on William. You see, William was born in the year 1000, and Joan was born in the year 1400, so she is 400 years more modern than William, and that's a pretty big difference. That's 4 centuries. So this means that her weapons were more advanced, and we know this because she has a cannon and William has a catapult. Simple as that. Alright, so tactics. Once again, I'm going to give the edge to Joan. Mainly because, same reason. She's more modern than William, and as we know through history, the tactics evolve as time evolves. Obviously, we know that in Iraq, with the wars going on there, they're not using the same tactics that are being used in the Napoleonic Wars or in the ancient world, the medieval world. So you imagine that, having fully automatic weapons and just running at each other. That would not be a pretty sight. So, I'm going to give the Joan. She has 400 more years newer than William. Possibly better tactics. I'm not sure. I didn't look into the tactics. Fatigue. Fatigue is a confusing X Factor, and I don't really like it. The winner is the person that is less fatigued. We saw that in the last episode, George against Napoleon, because George won it because he was less fatigued than Napoleon, because George didn't conquer a continent, he stayed within his own country, whereas Napoleon went all across Europe, into Asia, into North Africa, he did all that, so he was more fatigued. Personally, I think this is a stupid X Factor, but I'm going to give the edge to William, mainly because neither of these two leaders conquered a whole lot of terrain. I mean, in this time, everybody was pretty stable, all the countries. It wasn't like the time of the Romans or the Macedonians, where they conquered a whole bunch of land. This was different time period. So I'm going to give the edge to William because Joan was more of a general, whereas William was a king. So William may not have gone into battle as often as Joan, meaning that Joan would be more fatigued than William from going into battle so often. And so that's why I'm going to give the edge to William. Generalship. This is always a big one, and we know this. Let's look at Joan of Arc. Why did people follow Joan? Alright. Obviously, it was very difficult to follow Joan because she was a girl. And we know throughout history that girls were not treated as well as men. Obviously, girls were, they were practically slaves to their men. They were considered at the same rank as children, and even as late as the early 1900s, they were the same thing. They were treated as children. They were the same class as children. Obviously, it's not that way now, but it was. And so to follow a girl would have taken, there would have been some kind of force that made you do that, and that was the fact that they believed she was a divine power. They thought there was a prophecy, and that's why people followed her. Alright, because back then, the belief in a god or a messiah was huge. People relied so much on that stuff, and they'd do anything for their god. Alright? Even if it meant following a girl. And that's what they did, but that was the only reason that they followed her. Alright? But so now let's look at not Napoleon, William. It would have been hard for people to follow William because he was a king. He was not a divine power. He was not, a prophecy from God. He was just a king. And as we know that you can find it very hard to get along with your rulers sometimes. We look at Barack Obama, Stephen Harper, Queen Elizabeth. There's been so many rulers throughout history, and we know that we don't always get along with them. We don't agree with them. So to follow a king would have been kind of difficult. All right, and he wasn't a divine power. He had no, and also he I don't know. A lot of people don't know this, but before being before his conquest of England, and before his name was William the Conqueror, his name was William the Bastard. All right, and so you can imagine how difficult it would have been to follow somebody whose name was William the Bastard into England to conquer England. And so this would have been before the Battle of Hastings, and you know, I'm going to give generalship to William for that reason. People only followed Joan because she was a divine power, and like I said, back then, a divine power would have been a great source of influence, and Joan was, whereas William didn't have that, but they followed him even despite the fact that his name was William the Bastard. Alright, so I'm going to give the extra generalship to William. My overall prediction, I'm sure you guys are waiting to hear this, and this was a tough one for me. On one hand, you have a girl with better technology, she's more modern, you know, she has people following her that, you know, really want to follow her, and you know, she brings nationalism because she is considered the divine power, she's considered a prophecy. And on the other hand, you have a man who he was a king, and he, although his, you know, his technology wasn't as good as Joan's at long range, because he has a catapult, Joan has a cannon, his short range and possibly mid range may have been better than Joan's. And so, based on these, I'm going to give the edge to William the Conqueror. Why? Well, although his technology may lack in long range, we saw in my last video that at short range and mid range, his weapons, I believe, are better. His sword is much better than Joan's. And not only that, but the fact that he's a man. Alright, Joan is a woman, and this will be a huge factor in this episode, alright? This is the battle of the sexes, and that will be a huge factor. And I think William, the fact that he's a man, and he has possibly better close-range weaponry than Joan, will make him prevail. I think it will be a very, very close matchup. But I think in the end, William the Conqueror will conquer Joan. So, let me know what you thought in the comments below. Like it, rate it, subscribe. Got 9 subscribers now, so I'm climbing up there pretty fast. My goal is to have 1 million by the end of the week. I'm just kidding. As if. But we're gonna see you guys on Wednesday. Hoping to get a lot of views on this. I always like it when I get a view. I always like it when guys comment. So, you know, just comment. Let me know what you thought. If you have a disagreement, let me know. Don't be a prick about it, please. It's not nice. And yeah, so see you guys later, and